thought it'd be fun to mix things up a little bit and talk about the most commonly asked questions about e-bikes and show you how the X1 held up when compared to the competition. And since the X1 is in the most popular price range for e-bikes, I've got a lot of data to compare this to. Before I dive into the review, let me give you some background on Cirq. They're a California-based company with a handful of bikes, anywhere from lightweight and foldable to full suspension and beefy. After scrolling through their site, which I thought looked nice, it seems they are going the mid to high-end route with most of their bikes. Okay, so first question, how fast can it go? Well, that depends if you use pedal assist or throttle. For pedal assist, casually pedaling, I hit 28 miles per hour. When I increased my cadence, it didn't do anything except wear me out. I was still hitting 28. Now the throttle does go a little bit faster. With that, I was topping out at 30 miles per hour, which is 2 miles per hour faster than most bikes in this class. So if you want one of the fastest bikes out there in this price range, this is it. The second most popular question I get is how far can it go? Now range is always tricky because there's so many things that affect it, like elevation, temperature, rider weight, so just keep that in mind as you hear my stats. Now most of you guys know that I like to test the range when the bike is flat out. It's just more fun that way, and I like to go fast. So for my test, my average speed was 26 miles per hour, and I got over 23 miles with 2,245 feet of elevation gain. This thing can climb, which I'll talk about later, and is the reason why I decided to take it up the canyon, which is why I got over 2,000 feet of elevation gain. If you're wondering if that's a good range, it is. 23 miles is a long distance with that much elevation and going that fast. Now the thing I look for in the range test is not only how long it can go, but how consistent is the power as the battery begins to drain. Most bikes in this price range typically lose about 3 to 4 miles per hour from a full battery to a low battery. And also the acceleration is about half as powerful. The X1 was far from that. I was still hitting 28 miles per hour with about 5% battery left. That's only 2 miles less than with a full charge. And the acceleration was also still pretty powerful. I didn't really notice that big of a drop. I thought this is one of the best bikes for power consistency that I've seen in a while. So moving on to the next question, how reactive is the motor? Another way to phrase it is how long does it take for the power to come on as you pedal? Most bikes in this class take about 1 to 2 revolutions before the power hits. For me, that's one of the most annoying things about e-bikes. I personally prefer that power to come on as soon as I put pressure on the pedals. Well, the X1 is close to that. It takes about 1/4 of a revolution before the power hits, and that's from a standstill and while you're moving. The throttle's even quicker. As soon as you press it, the power comes on. And if you're the type that likes to pedal and use the throttle at the same time, that transition is seamless. Now the very reactive motor is something you'll love if you decide to take this off-road, which I'll talk about later. Earlier I mentioned the power this has for hills, so let me dive into that because most of you like to know how steep of a hill bikes can climb. Well, the answer to that for the X1 is very steep. This has a Bafang 750 watt motor in the rear wheel. I'm not sure what the torque rating is, but it's got to be high because I didn't have to help it out, which actually kind of shocked me. I was in the process of lowering the gears, expecting it to die, to go slow enough to where I needed to help it out, and it just never got to that point. There's very few bikes in this class that can tackle that hill without any help. All right, the last question is, how does it do off-road? Normally when somebody asks me about a fat bike, I typically say be choosy on the type of trail you take it on, go slow, and wear padded underwear. With the X1, you don't have to be so picky. It's got a higher front end fork suspension, a larger and soft saddle, and a softer, flexible frame. Most fat bikes typically have a rigid and firm frame, so when you hit a rock or a bump or a drop, you're feeling the aftershocks for 20 feet down the trail. This one seemed to roll with the punches. When it did hit a bigger bump, it didn't really reverberate throughout the frame. There was kind of this smooth bouncing motion, which actually felt like a full suspension bike. I wasn't getting rocked nearly as bad as I thought I was going to. The other thing I loved was the reactive motor. For single track riding, you've got obstacles every few feet, and you need the power to hit right away so you can prepare to navigate through it, which you've got with this. And when the power comes on, it's not jerky or abrupt. It's smooth and doesn't overdo it. I don't recommend fat bikes for off-road riding, especially for single track trails, but I think you'd be okay with this. A couple more things I liked about the bike is the low and long frame. This thing just stays upright. I was able to ride this without any hands right off the bat. And the handling is what I call fast and sharp. You've got a lower center of gravity, which means you can tear and rip around corners. I also like the display. I haven't seen too many that look like that. Just thought it was pretty cool looking. And I also thought the control pad was unique and different. The advanced settings are also easy to navigate. There's no guessing involved. and the screen has a light sensor that will change the brightness depending on the ambient lighting. The things that I didn't like was the manual brake light. It does have a couple modes, but it's not that bright. Then there's the very visible welding scars, and the passcode to enter the advanced settings to change the speed and pedal assist level. There's just no need for that. I want easy access to do that, and I couldn't find the passcode in the instruction manual. I had to email the company, which I'll give it to you now so you don't have to do that. It's 1919. Okay, so hopefully that answers some questions about the Cirq X1. Based on my experience from the many bikes I reviewed in this class, I thought it held up pretty well and have no problem recommending it. So let me know what you guys thought and if you have any questions about the bike. Thanks for watching and take care.